welcome to everyone. My name is Pablo de Soto. I'm the director at LABoral Art and Industrial Creation Center in Asturias, North Spain. And we are grateful to organize this EMAP Capacity Building workshop. So EMAP is the European Media Art Platform. Together with our other members, our partners, we organize this workshop with the idea to share some knowledge in relation to the media art field. No. So the topic today is maps as media art, and of course, like maps are a very powerful form of media, no. And the current state of the art is like all the digital technologies and different investigative frameworks have made like maps really powerful, like tools for storytelling and but also like political work and deciphering out the complexity of our world. And contemporary map making today like combines like a video, complex diagrammatic skills and also like immersive web-based experience. So specifically this relationship between maps and media art is what we're gonna explore today with three cartographic superstars. So basically, Vladan Joler will talk for half an hour, then Fei Zhou for half an hour, and then we'll have a longer session by Mamata Akela. So Vladan Joler, he's an academic researcher and an artist whose work is well known, like combining critical cartography, investigative journalism, and data visualization. Well, I think probably all of us here knows very well about what he's doing with the Share Foundation, all this critical cartography work of the technological world. With anatomy of an AI system, and lately calculating empires together with Kate Crawford. And of course, his work has been exhibited all around, like from MoMA to many places. And we are very pleased also that we are gonna showcase his work in an exhibition next year called Digital Machines. We are also very grateful to have today Fei Zhou. She's a Chinese-born spatial and visual designer. She's of course also trained as an architect, and she was one of the perpetrators of this amazing super production called the Feral Atlas, no? Where she engaged in a very fruitful collaboration with anthropologists and with environmental humanities scholars in a kind of one that is the state of the art of like digital publishing. And now she's currently teaching in Columbia, and before she was teaching in London, Central St. Martin's. And the last of the participants will be Mamata Akela. She's a software developer, and she is the former president of the North American Cartographic Information Society, and she is the chief cartographer at Felt. And Felt is a company like who is like producing digital mapping tools. They have clients like the Smithsonian or the National Park Service in the United States, but they have also like a non-profit version of the platform. And she will go through the specification of the Felt non-profit version to be used by media artists or even like by radical cartographers all around. So yes, we are very. Yeah, so I think it's going to be an exciting session. We will also record it to keep it for the ones who are not here. So I think we're going to start, Vladan, with your talk. So thank you very much to all of us.
Okay. Thank you, Pablo, for the introduction, and I'm really excited about this one because usually, you know, I don't know, most few years I'm mostly like speaking about things that are inside of the maps, and so I kind of speak usually about, I don't know, extractivism, about like I don't know, AI and things like this. And I'm super excited not to speak so much what is inside, but more what is basically some kind of meta narrative of the maps itself. And so I'm really excited about that. Basically, my exploration into mapping, I mean, started like really long in, I guess, in like early 2000s. I was like really attracted by all of those like internet topography maps. But back then I didn't know how to do it. So maybe even like 10 or 11, 12 years after, I finally, because I was doing some investigations about like attacks together with some attacks on like investigative journalists and online media. And then I was like working with some cyber forensics and other interesting people. And basically I realized that I'm now finally able to do some kind of like a mapping of internet infrastructures, of network topographies. And this is basically how my deep dive into this kind of type cartography of the unknowns started. But so I will share now one map, and it's called basically it's a map of one internet service provider. No, let me see, is this working? All right. And what I want to speak about this one is basically back then. So now we are speaking about 2011, 12, 13, maybe. I didn't saw maps as a artistic medium at all. You know, for me, those maps were like more some kind of like evidence. So that was like my main goal. I want to see what's going on there. I want to somehow explore those let's say invisible landscapes of like data flows of infrastructure and everything. And I saw those maps mostly as an evidence in a way. So I find a way how to do it. We do some kind of like different kinds of technical, let's say, investigation. And as a result, we are getting the map, no? And that was like super exciting for me. But then the questions that I always had, it's like, okay, now when I'm able to see those territories and those relations, what I can learn from them. So basically I knew how to create the map, but I didn't know how to read it, you know, like politically read it. So in a way, this is when all of those like my attempts to critically read the invisible started. And it continued with like a lot of different investigations. And this is some kind of like my detective years in which I was like really obsessed with trying to find the different ways of seeing. And so I can say in that period, I was really not thinking about maps as some kind of artistic medium, but more as some kind of evidence. And then basically in one moment because we were like going further and deeper into those infrastructures, no? And we had like this kind of obsession of like how to find the way to collect data, how to find a way to transform this data into something visual. So basically the main problem started when those maps became bigger and bigger, no? So for example, like this one that is called Facebook Algorithmic Empire, Facebook Algorithmic Factory. And this is basically when those maps, and for me, they're still like combination of evidence. Basically, I see them as some kind of like a diary that I'm doing. Like, so I'm doing some kind of deep, long investigation and basically drawing all the paths, all the entities that I'm seeing on that way, you know? But they became bigger and bigger and bigger and more complex. So they started to form some kind of like a mega structures, no, that I'm like presenting in one map, and I became completely obsessive about it, in a sense of I'm spending like 1 or 2 years in order to draw this kind of like a map. And I think with this scale, because before that, like most of the maps or like drawings and everything in investigations I was doing, they were like never communicated as an art object. So they were like mostly used to scare other people, usually like, I don't know, policymakers, or they were like, I was presenting mostly in some kind of like weird data investigation / investigative journalist / policy / hacker community. And it was never communicated as an art, you know. But then I think somehow with the scale, when they became so big, people start to understand them as an art object somehow. Even for me, they were never there. And every time when I am, okay, maybe now after some time, because like we are now like really somehow embraced by the art and institutions and museums and galleries and stuff like this. So somehow, consciously or not, I have this in my mind that at the end it's going to be communicated as an art object, no, as a media art object, not as evidence anymore. But back then it was just not like this. I just saw them as a evidence, as some kind of drawing of some territory, no? And then everything exploded basically with anatomy of an AI in a sense of like it really went more into, let's say, some kind of art world, even if it's still like really part of like you know, many different communities and many different universities. It became some kind of art object. And so let me try to really somehow to share with you like what really excites me about the map as a form of media, as a form of what I see in them. It's basically, okay, the way how I'm making them as a form of like a journey. You know, I'm starting with one point and I'm doing always in parallel research and mapping. So it's not like I have everything, all the papers, all the books and stuff like this. I'm really starting with the point. And this is when you start to be embedded in those maps as a form of thinking as well. As in the same time, they're like form of like thinking for me, how I'm basically proceeding, because like once you draw something, you start with one dot, then basically every next step you're just like, you know, flowing together with the map. So the research is together with the map, and in a way, for me, they are like crucial part of research. But as an object, what I really like is basically this kind of like n-dimensionality of the map as a space. So it's a big difference that I am basically, you know, when you are creating the essay or movie, this is some kind of one linear narrative, no? In which you have like a beginning, middle, and the end. And the map, it's something completely different. It's basically n-dimensional space. So people are asking me, sorry, just a second, I need to open the door. So people are asking me, okay, why your maps are like so, you know, why you don't go in the 3-dimension, or why you don't go in, I don't know, like, why you don't make an object out of it. For me, I really don't need that, because like each of those maps are basically n-dimensional spaces. And I will try now to explain how I see that. Is basically when you are creating a language of the map, and I think it's really important to understand the language as a map as a form of storytelling. So you basically, each type of object or each symbol, each way how you present things is a form, it's a one dimension. So for example, dots are one dimension and lines are another dimensions. And then when you can basically embed many different dimensions of information inside of one dot and two dots and one line, no? So I don't need basically this kind of like a third dimension of space and or something like this. So I'm kind of like really traditional in that, like keeping myself inside this like monochromatic world of the map and basically enjoying in all of those like different possibilities that mapping is giving me. But in the same time, you also like, what is the difference with maps as a medium as compared to other medium, is that you are also providing people, you're also providing them some kind of n-dimensional space. So they're made to be read in different ways. So basically, each person who is approaching the map have a chance to do it and explore the map in any way they want, you know. And this is this kind of classical art moment in which once you draw the map, you don't have any more, when it's in the public, then basically it's up to other people to read this in their own way, you know. And this is this kind of like so the feeling, it's like when you are creating this kind of spaces, for me it's more closer to, I don't know, some kind of creating of computer game, like open-ended computer game in which, I mean, you create the open world, and then people are exploring this world in any way they want, no? So this is for me like really important, let's say, the aspect, and this is something that I really enjoy. And then there is this kind of like also some kind of like hidden three-dimensionality in these spaces. So you basically have a different planes, you know, you can go deeper into some kind of detail and explain some story there, you know. But when you zoom out, this detail is completely not visible in a sense. So it's made for people who are just interested in that. And I always think about like, you know, when you have like, I don't know, the map of the some kind of geographical map of some country, you know, like no one is like reading each name of each village one by one, no? So you are providing basically something that have like many different dimensions of information. So for me, this is like super exciting part of it. But then in one moment there is always this kind of like I mean, like we usually publish the map together with the essay, and I'm kind of, I don't know, I understand the importance of essay, and in a way, essays are usually, let's say, like framing and giving people way to understand your point of the view when you are creating a map, and then basically you're anchoring them with an essay, in a way, giving them a hints and basically drawing some kind of linear story within this non-linear space, no? So you basically like give them some kind of guide, let's say, to do it. But then the problem is like once you do it, you are sometimes losing, because then people tend to understand the map from that point of one line that you draw them through the essay. So I'm kind of always in between. I understand that this kind of linear translation of this kind of non-linear space is important. But then I also feel all the time how you lose something. So for example, with Anatomy of an AI, like maybe like people who read the essay, almost no one like noticed that basically there is a third of the map missing in that essay. Like, for example, in Anatomy of an AI, we have a lot about like birth and these kind of like minerals, metals and everything, and stories from all around the world, and story about infrastructure and all of this. But there is no death. And basically this map is kind of birth, life and death of one thing. So there is like you know, like it's an interesting, it's an, I don't know, for me, it's interesting, this kind of relation between non-linearity of the map and linear, you know, linearity of an essay. And then basically, but what I realized, because we went with this one, like really on really a lot of exhibitions, and then they're being used in many different educational institutions and stuff like this. So, and then people are sometimes approaching to me in the sense of, okay, thank you for the map. Thank you for the map, because I'm not able to process text, you know, I'm not able to process the essays as a story, you know, I'm just looking at the map. And then you have other people who are just saying, who just think that the map is some kind of illustration of the essay, you know. So it's different people have a different, let's say, capacities of reading and enjoying in this kind of complex visual systems that you are providing. But then, for example, I found like on different universities, they're using them as a form of a workshop material. So people, like, you know, printing the map, and then students are basically telling their own story through this material, or filling the gaps, or adding, like, you know, upgrading and stuff like this. So basically, in last one, I had also an experiment with the transformation of the map into visual language, into language of video, that I found like really like a powerful experience for me. But the thing is, like, that map was like completely some kind of beautiful abstraction. The name of that one was new extractivism.
New extractivism. So
and basically,
outside this cave and horizon of.
But that one was a perfect. So for example, like, just to explain this one, how the beginning, basically this map, it's a meta map. It's a map that was made on top of all other maps. So it's like all of those like philosophical, conceptual ideas and everything that I really was in love with when I was making other maps. And I wanted to make this kind of meta map just of concepts and ideas. And when I saw it as a map at the end, and I created the essay that is basically structured as a footnote, then I realized this really looks as some kind of script for a animated movie. And basically I had all of the frames already done, because they were like part of the map. So I transformed this into basically a movie, really some kind of hardcore visual storytelling about like really complex issues. And a lot of people also appreciate that. So I learned, like, there is a different way to transform the map into like different media or whatever. And then with this, like a last one, we really went, that was like really, let's say, extreme experience. So it's called like calculating empires, and so we spent like 4 years creating. So it's like, now in physical reality, it's some kind of 24 meters long map of like history of technology and power, starting from 1500s to present day. But also for me, you know, this experience, and it was like completely different experience than other maps, because we spent literally 4 years inside of the map. So because we worked in online environment of these Miro boards, and basically spending 4 years inside of the map and going dot by dot manually and experiencing this complexity. And this one is really over the top, in a sense of like, it touched the maximum of like a human capacities, I guess, both on the side of like doing it, but also in the side how it's represented. So I always try to, at the end, now with this experience with like exhibitions and everything, I'm basically aware of some kind of limitations of the maps, in a sense of physical limitations, that they should not be bigger than 3 meters, because then people will not able to see them. So you're all the time in communication with those kind of limitations. But this one went like really long, big, and it's now like 24 meters of really condensed space. And I was like really afraid, like how people are going to react on this, because I was thinking they're going to throw up or something like this, because it's really too much when you are inside of that. But in a way, it's not. It's okay. It looks like people like it. Yeah, so there is like, and this one, it's like really, for me, what I really like about it, it's like, some kind of dance of like, in between, like really precise information and some kind of like data visualization style of representation, some topics, but also combined with some abstractions. And so from my point of view, you give people sometimes like really precise information, and then you lead them in some kind of abstract philosophical space and bring them back again. So it's some kind of like I don't know, from my point of view, some kind of like a really, really long roller coaster of different, types of representations. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I think like we will have a chance to continue this discussion after, no?
Vladan, I think we have 5 minutes more. I think I would like you to talk a bit about this, like the audio tours, like this new feature that you are adding to the maps, like this, like guided audio tour, that you also use it for the infrastructure of a bird.
Yeah. So basically, I started to, in one moment, to realize that we need somehow to ground the to lead people through those like non-linear spaces. And this is basically those guides that both in infrastructure of the migratory bird, but also in calculating empires, we started to introduce audio guides as a forms to orient people in this space, But it also like it's not just like, so usually we have those like guides as a form of orientation. So we are like explaining the logic, how we created this, and maybe this logic can help visitor to explore by itself, but also to tell some examples of this, because like you sometimes behind one dot on this map, or also in anatomy, and there is complexity, like sometimes we spend basically in anatomy, spend like hours and hours or days even like investigating something, and at the end on the map it's just like one dot with some name. So there is so many stories behind each of those dots, no? And in a way, this is how those audio guides or maybe essays can help basically to give you those stories that are hidden behind the line, behind the dot, behind like all of those elements. So, and probably those audio tours are also transforming this, let's say, two-dimensional space of like really traditional, like map or paper on the wall into some kind of like interactive environment. But I heard now, like, I don't know who was saying now in Ars Electronica, how basically this map should be also in this kind of interactive art category, even if it's just a piece of paper, because how people react to it and how they like zoom in, zoom out, like when you have this space like of I don't know, 24 meters of madness. So people start to explore this, and then you find this interactivity basically in their bodies, because in order to connect things from one part of the map to another one or whatever, you need to move, you need to walk, and then you go down, jump, like move further, zoom in, zoom out, and it's super interesting. Like, once you have a map in a computer, you are zooming in or zooming out with your mouse or whatever you use, But when you have a map in a space, then the map become interactive object in a sense that people are zooming in and zooming out with their bodies. And that's for me like really interesting way of thinking about it, like how but in a way I'm kind of okay, there is this like a video but I'm kind of like I'm in love with this n-dimensionality of the map. And for me, those other things are like maybe even not necessary. I'm kind of Spartan in that way, I'm kind of like, okay, this piece of paper, it's enough for me. I can put inside of this two-dimensional space like a complete madness of everything, if I really want to play with. So I'm kind of Spartan in a way of like not including the other media into it, because like many people are like, oh, you can do this and this, and it can be like VR, it can be I don't know what, it can be a movie, it can be, yes, of course it can be like, because it's easy once you have this kind of structure, then you can basically extract from there whatever you want. You can transform this into a screenplay, into theater play. We also had some kind of like some people were like approaching to us to do like a theater play out of the map and stuff like this. But in a way, for me, I'm kind of rigid in that place. I found like, okay, I don't need to do everything, I'm just going to provide this. And then like, I'm really happy that other people take out from there and create their own like extraction of like into whichever medium they want to have, no? So I'm kind of really traditional in that sense of like the 2D, it's maybe enough. Yeah. I don't hear you, Pablo.
So yeah, thank you very much, Vladan. As I say, we're gonna have an exhibition January next year, and the visitor are gonna enjoy, I think, 5, 6 of like his maps in a kind of in an artistic display, and we're really looking forward. So now we are also very, very grateful to have Fei Yo. So for another like half an hour or a bit more if you want, Fei. And at the end we have just 5 minutes of Q&A just at the very end after Mama Takela.
Thank you, Pablo. I try to keep the time within half an hour. Just checking you're seeing the screen. All right.
I think,
Yeah.
Faye, maybe you have to play and then share screen.
Okay. How about now?
Wonderful.
Okay, great. So today I want to talk a bit about how cartography in, I guess, my case in the projects I've been working on becoming multimedia. And I'm showcasing a variety of different kinds of maps, particularly inspired by Fair Atlas as a collective project that kind of get extended to my other personal projects. I'm just going to dive straight in to this digital publication that I worked on with 3 other anthropologists, Anna Singh, Jennifer Deegan, and Alda Kerem-Saxena. We published this in 2020, and there is about, including volunteers, 200 people working on this gigantic collective digital humanity project. And what's at the essence of the project is 79 field reports, these kind of field-based observations written by people varying from scientists, artists, humanists, activists, architects, together examining the kind of what we call the infrastructure effects that get tangled up with non-human world and producing these kind of ferroecology that essentially form the Anthropocene. So today I'm not gonna dig too much into the conceptual world, but I like to kind of showcase what variety of representations we use to really convey the argument. So what you see here, the tagline is what we call the thought bomb. And we pair it with watercolor critters, as you've seen from the previous slide, and with a variety of different, what we call the flow maps, which vary from obviously traditional maps like GIS maps or satellite imagery, but also poetry, sound, so audio files, video. So we really try to kind of stretch and extend the kind of traditional or disciplinary understanding of what cartography means. And obviously, the kind of biggest task I created for the atlas is these, what we call the Anthropocene detonator landscapes, a series of 4 landscape drawings that essentially is a mapping project. So each one talked about a specific historical conjunctures that trigger the ferro effects or trigger the Anthropocene. So instead of focusing on one particular starting point in history, we wanted to extend it into a variety of events. And they each called invasion, empire, capital, and acceleration. So what made them different in size, formats, and even perspectives from architect's point of view is actually how I wanted you as the viewers who look at these drawings from imagined lenses of specific historical individuals and collectives. What does that mean? So I'm going to get into each one just to give you a taste of that. So this drawing called Invasion that lies on this a long, expansive kind of horizontal canvas. So imagine yourself as an explorer, a colonial explorer, that you're coming into a new landscape, starting with this voyage of exploration. So panning from the right to the left, you have the ships arriving, you have various kind of more human conflicts happening. You can see the Amazon forest burning, cattle farming, eventually at the end into this modified landscape, into this kind of European gardens. So the mapping itself has the narrative aspect to it that talked about not just the colonial invasion, but also the resistance from them, which is why we also had incorporated other artists, particularly if we were talking about the more the human conflicts. This one is from the Aboriginal Australian artist Nancy McDinney. Her original painting depicted her great-grandfather defending their land against European mining prospectors, which become part of this kind of first encounter of European explorers into other landscapes. And another one is by First Nation artist Andy Everson, who's depicting the Comox Glacier that's melting due to climate change, which is deeply sad for the local communities who've been living and relying on the glacier for centuries. So in the atlas, we try to utilize digital humanity as also an interactive element. So instead of showing the ferro entities directly, we don't make them pop up unless you mouse over the infrastructures. So in a way, we want viewers to be the human to trigger the kind of ferro effects. So in this case, if you imagine your mouse clicking the dot on the sugarcane plantation, then the watercolor painting of cane toad coming up. Clicking that will take you to the field report. Now, I'm not showing you the report itself, but I want to show you what we call the flow map. In this case, is drawn by our author, who's Aboriginal artist Russell Ashley, who in this painting and the field report talk about how the importation of cane toad into Australia, believed to help the sugarcane plantation, actually ended up killing many species, including the goannas, who accidentally eat the poisonous meat and die. So that's the kind of human effect of infrastructure, transportation of species, having this accidental, unexpected, unintentional effects on another landscape. Similarly here, if you were to click the dot that's on the commercial salmon pens, the lice will pop up. And this case is written by indigenous First Nation chief Ernest Alfred, who worked with documentary maker Travis Campbell. So this is their footage of this unprocessed salmon blood from the industrial farming, just kind of constantly being chunked out into the deep ocean, with all these disease kind of embedded within the salmon meat and the blood. So using video as a way, what we call the flow map, is really capturing the kind of spatial shift within that moment in its continuity. And then coming into empire from a bit different perspective, you know, instead of being horizontal, it's kind of vertical. And it really kind of try to position yourself as a surveyor standing on top of a hill and imagine the landscape just unroll in front of you while examining this kind of modification that is about to happen or already taken place. So this is inspired by Southeast Asian landscape, which you can see some of the vernacular crops such as rice and cassava, but then slowly being replaced by colonial crops. You see various water modification projects happening and more colonial projects taking on shore, and all these ships coming from a different direction. So actually it just showed the canvas is almost like a continuous process that just keep happening and replacing itself. And here we have another collaboration with architect and artist Larry Botchway. So his illustration depicts how in Ghana, where contract become a form to tie local villages to land through a colonial palm plantation leased by kind of bigger companies. And you can also see the way he tried to depict the resistance of the local people all on this contract through quite literally tearing it up. And similarly, if you were to mouse over this infrastructure, the botanical garden in this case, this green plant called Genja will pop up. And here we pair up the photograph with this song called Genja Genja. This is written by anthropologist Gillian Bogard and Gidi Putra that talked about invasive species called Genja brought into Indonesia as an invasive species and use as livestock feed and then become an essential food source during Japanese occupation in the 40s. And then they create this song called Genja Genja as a folk song to really kind of represent their emotional tie to this. First, during the 1965, Indonesian military, supported by the US government during the Cold War, also accused the Indonesian Communist Party for assassinating the general, starting a massacre for up to 2 million Indonesians. And they made a documentary as propaganda, and this song was used in this documentary. Now this song is kind of associated with some kind of mourning with a past, but also a kind of shame or sadness with this very heavy history. So this kind of pairing with photograph and song as a map really try to kind of bring us back into the complex conflicts that are happening within that particular time. Then if we were to look at the dot on this slave ship, you have a mosquito popping up. That is Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. They were brought onto the ship and then taking advantage of the particular condition of densely packed human bodies and fresh water through the journey, which then evolved into, it became infectious diseases, including yellow fever. So actually, this drawing or this map, is famous Brookshire map, showed not only the kind of inhumane conditions created on the ship, but also from a mosquito's perspective, become the perfect breeding ground. But then the story doesn't just stop there. Once they arrived into the Caribbean, they continue to evolve into yellow fever virus, taking advantage of the sugarcane plantation condition. So this is another case by John McNeill that talked about how in the Caribbean, the colonial sugarcane becoming the breeding ground for further disease breeding, evolving, and transformations. I won't take too long about the other two landscapes, but this one, I get a lot of questions of why capital out of the four landscapes stand from a different perspective, which is isometric. So for me, particularly from my architecture training background, this drawing talks about the capitalization of nature into profitable assets. So the invention of grid, helping control land ownership and management, which is why the drawing is made in this particular viewpoint, which is unrealistic skewed angle, also showed how landscape is standardized into modules that can be replicated everywhere, which we see all around the world becoming more and more replicable and recognizable because of the module being kind of keep modified and copy and paste what we call the infrastructure systems. So everything exists in parallel and standardized, which this grid, the first thing I did on this drawing was to draw the grid to help homogenize the landscape we're living. And this particular part showed how scale become almost irrelevant on this drawing. So if you look closely, the people were meat packers working in factory in the pink suits are right next to these people working in the factories, next to the Victorian style kind of cotton factories, next to supermarket shelves, next to cargo ships, and next to the skyscrapers. So everything kind of happened all at once, and scale just become, rather than a restriction and a disciplinary boundary, becomes something that I can kind of use to really convey the argument of homogenized landscape. And lastly, acceleration offered a different perspective, which is more from a non-human point of view, looking up from underneath a clock of marine plastic. So this drawing talked about the kind of great acceleration post-World War II, how production has really accelerated at an unprecedented rate. That include the production of waste, which is how you see not just the kind of marine plastic, but also effluent, exhaust, wastewater, or sipping through different kinds of environment. And this landscape have very interesting collaborations, a bit different from the previous ones. We actually worked with contemporary art installations. So it's more of a collage, kind of incorporation of the elements. So these two installations are done by artists Amy Lee and Enzo Camacho, and their piece was depicting this kind of mythological figure from the Philippines called Manananggal. So in this drawing, we want to use the mythological piece to talk about this kind of difficult to describe the force that really kind of push us through. We're so stuck in this world of acceleration. We're surrounded by plastic. We're surrounded by phenomena of climate change. We're surrounded by all these pollutants, but we kind of can't really figure out exactly what to do or get out of it. So that was the point of this particular incorporation. We recently published a book called Field Guide to the Patrianthropocene, the same editors, same team, but we want to use a book to focus more on the conceptual framework of all the elements that happened in the atlas. So if you're interested, please have a read of the book. And then jumping to another project called Fluorine Toxins. This was commissioned by Forum of the Future in 2021. And this drawing, a bit different from FerroAtlas, looking at this kind of world point of view, focus more on a specific region. In this case is Jakarta Bay. So I want to use the following video, which is made by Listen Gallery in London when I exhibited this drawing, to just give you an idea of when the drawing is interesting, when we were talking about how maps kind of move human bodies. In this case, really was how a printed gigantic map really takes a person's pair of eyes to kind of move through different elements to really understand the narrative.
Flowing Toxins elucidates how infrastructures range water supply, sewage, and property into shifting relationships that variably reproduce structures of urban inequality in Jakarta, Indonesia. Across various scales, perspectives, and dimensionalities, the drawing displays multiple narratives and material processes at once. The main map on the left-hand side of the drawing depicts Jakarta, where rapid land subsidence is occurring as wealthy strata of society and industry use private bore wells to drill for deep groundwater, a cleaner and more reliable alternative to polluted, piped surface water. Meanwhile, industry returns severely contaminated wastewater back to Jakarta's complex water channels, rivers, and sea. The toxicity in water is highlighted through neon green. The drawings of apartment buildings, factories, and plantations represent three key sources of water pollution, which are domestic sewage, industrial effluent, and agricultural runoff. Poor coastal kampong, which are urban villages like Muara Angke, as mapped on the right-hand side of the drawing, are informal settlements for traditional fish persons. The pressures that burden the kampong, namely polluted water, informal land tenure, and lack of access to water and sanitation infrastructure, are the same sets of interrelated pressures that generate anthropogenic substance. Substance, in turn, gives rise to coastal infrastructure, such as seawalls depicted at the bottom of the drawing, and property-making schemes that threaten to displace informal settlements. The top of the drawing illustrates cultivation of pollution-hardy green mussels as informal labor, ecotoxicological concerns about bioaccumulation in mussels, and how coastal people use mussel shell berms and semi-permanent architectures to adjust to subsidence, eviction, and encroaching infrastructures. There are many entry points to read the drawing, showing the simultaneity and multiplicity of the ecologies through which the material landscape and structural inequality co-shape one another.
So after this project, I've been thinking about how to utilize other forms of media to convey other kind of narratives of mapping through mapping. And this is a video I took during my field trip last year in the Johor Strait, which is a long, narrow passage of water between Malaysia and Singapore. And my collaborator Zahira Suhaimi and I worked with indigenous photographer and fisherman Jeffrey Salim, who was in the video, to create this, I guess, moving map of the history of the Johor Strait from their perspective. So I'm going to talk about it through a narrative format. Legend has it, in Johor's history, it rained for a whole month, non-stop. As much of the land was submerged, many tribes of Orang Asli moved to boats to avoid animals like tigers and crocodiles on the mountaintop. When the tide retreated, Orang Selita settled around the rivers. According to various folktales, Olansolite culture was nurtured by rich amphibious ecosystems, primarily mangroves. The dynamic porosity shifted when plantation reshaped the landscape of Johor. During the mid-19th century, Gambia plantation quickly come to dominate the strait's near-water regions, growing partnership with pepper, replacing mangrove. This is where the Gambian plantations were located by the colonial plantation owners. The Gambian extraction process required boiling its leaves, and the planters quickly turned to mangrove trees as resources of firewood and charcoal. Global demand had boomed this extremely exhausting cultivation process, which turns land to wasteland within only 20 years. With the disappearance of mangrove forests as multi-species shelter and nurseries, the Olansolitas were forced to seek livelihood elsewhere. Porosities today has become toxic and dangerous. The construction of the new highway facilitated the new coastal infrastructure project, such as land reclamation, dams, seawalls, and luxury housing, which block water exchange in some places while exacerbating the mixing of chemical and physical dumps in others. With intensification of industrial fishing and mussel cultivation, the Olansolitas find it challenging to maintain the traditional livelihood practices of fishing, hunting, and foraging. With limited access, they rely largely on local Chinese and Malay middlemen to sell the daily catches to urban restaurants and markets. In this extractive landscape, both humans and non-humans struggle to adapt to this constantly shifting porosity. So that was a map we created through kind of distant collaboration, which because of COVID, but also because all the collaborators are located in different places. So the way I get research and collaborate with them and speak to them, work with them is through Zoom or the other kind of internet based platforms. And these are some of the photographs taken by my collaborator, Jeffrey Salim, of his neighborhood and communities. And finally, thanks to different grants I received, I get to visit the sites myself, both last year and this year. And this is to say that all the work that I'm doing has been a continuous process. I make a map and that was a full stop of the project. So constantly going back and revisiting these sites is also a kind of refreshment of the research material and the drawings themselves. So that landscape of the Johor Strait formed a huge contrast of this place where last year during my field trip in Singapore, I happened to come across the world's second largest commercial shipping port, which actually is reclaimed within the last 20 years. The sheer scale of it and the history of the land reclamation in Singapore, a very small country, was so fascinating that inspired me to work on a relatively new project. So I was lucky to have met with environmental chemist Gonzalo Carrasco, who later became my collaborator on this project. I followed various points. And in the labs, he kind of detected various heavy metal, organic matter from the water to understand the infrastructural impact from the inland and how it impacts the kind of seawater and these kind of oceanic biodiversities. And particularly looking at these really hardened water edges and how the lack of porosity, like I mentioned before, the replacement of mangroves and other kind of amphibious ecosystem had a huge impact on how the coasts are unable to digest heavy metal as it used to do and become kind of a bioaccumulation of hazardous zones. And looking at the shore on a Sunday, actually when we were going for swimming, is this kind of commercial ships just constantly coming and go. So we worked on a project commissioned by Diriyah Biennial, happening in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia, of this kind of digital interactive projects, a mapping project called Before There Was Land, There Were Mangroves. So I made this film to try to kind of describe the essence of the project in ways of depicting these kind of spatial shifts in very small to very large scales, and how that kind of capture the infrastructure impact of land reclamation.
You're looking at the map of contemporary Singapore, a country where over 20% of its landmass sits on reclaimed land, most intensively on the south coast. The rapid urbanization and industrialization since gaining independence in 1965 relied heavily on territorial expansion, transforming the sea into solid ground and erasing in the process all traces of the past. In September 2023, architect and artist Feifei Zhou accompanied environmental chemist Gonzalo Carrasco on 2 sampling expeditions along Singapore's southern coast, pinpointed here, here, and here. Through seawater sampling, they tracked 4 heavy metal pollutants: zinc, copper, cadmium, and lead, as well as natural organic matter that prevents the heavy metals from bioaccumulating, and unnatural organic matter from industrial activities. Their goal was to unravel the distribution of pollutant metals, to assess the repercussions of recent industrial and residential activities on coastal and oceanic ecosystems. Combining historical archives, previous source sampling data, and the ongoing monitoring program MESN, the findings present a staggering insight into the chemical impacts on coastal regions. The study identifies 4 areas: East Coast, West Coast, Jurong Island, and Tuas, with dense human settlements and industrial operations as primary sources of metal pollutants in the ocean. The metal contaminants and organic matter traced through sampling can be linked to specific coastal activities on each site. For instance, copper, an element primarily connected with its use as a herbicide in lawns in residential areas, is observed on the East Coast. The port on the West Coast, the world's 2nd largest commercial port, serves as a source of zinc from cargo ship sacrificial anode that prevents ship body rusting. Jurong Island, a reclaimed island on Singapore's southwest tip, now dominated by oil refinery industries that handle large amounts of petroleum-related unnatural organic matter. And Tuas, a reclaimed peninsula densely occupied by chemical plants, emerges as a potential source of several trace metals. However, the changes that made the contemporary coastline not only generate these metal pollutants, but also exacerbate their accumulation. A natural coast vastly covered in mangroves, seagrasses, swamps, and mudflats was a source of natural organic matter that prevented the metals from bioaccumulating. Intertwined natural rivers carry this organic matter from the land to the ocean, sustaining intertidal ecosystems that facilitate this crucial exchange. In contrast, the current rigid coastlines constructed with cement and rock hardly provide any, facilitating the metals to accumulate in sediments and marine life such as fish and clams. This lack of exchange transformed the coastline from a thriving nursery for diverse amphibious ecosystems to a hazardous zone of high concentration of pollutants. To comprehend the intensive accumulation of pollutants over time, and its correlation with our increasingly rigid coastlines, we must revisit the past and trace the changes inflicted on the landscape before the sea gave way to land.
So currently I'm launching my own studio called Terra Stories as a spatial design studio inspired by all these research I'm doing and how we can use spatial interventions, collaborating with architects and other spatial practitioners and to come up with ideas and working with these kind of ferro effects that we've been studying. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Faye. So yeah, it was great. Now the last intervention by Mamata Kela. After Vladan's and Feifei work, we want also to showcase a tool, let's say a cartographic tool that could be potentially being used by media artists or by critical cartographers or cultural practitioners. So felt the platform, the software is what and its specification and capacities in the non-profit version is what Mamata is going to share with us in more like a demo showcase way. So I have to say that it's also to organize this workshop was quite challenging because Feifei was in China, Vladan is in China, Vladan is in Serbia, and Mamata is in United States. So, but we managed. So, Mamata, can you please go ahead?
Yes, thank you. And I'm just gonna share my screen here. Can everybody see my screen okay? Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. And yes, sorry, I couldn't join the entire workshop today. Pretty early here. I live in Denver, Colorado. And my name is Mamata Akella, and I do cartography at Felt. And today I wanted to just like kind of talk about Felt, show some maps, and hopefully really what I want to do is get a demo going so everybody can kind of get a sense for what the tool can do in the context of maps as media art. So I think there's like two parts of Felt. The first one is very business use case. It's a modern cloud native GIS platform. If you're familiar with other GIS tools, Felt will feel very familiar for you. It enables companies, teams, and organizations to create and collaborate on maps, apps, and dashboards. So if you're looking at Felt kind of through this lens, you're looking at what geospatial data formats can I upload? How can I connect to my databases? How can I do geospatial analysis and all of that kind of stuff? And that is definitely what something that Felt is very powerful for. And then there's this other part of Felt. Felt also supports storytelling through maps in new ways. I've been a cartographer for, I don't know, almost 20 years now, working in the technology space on different tools, and Felt really is kind of the first mapping platform where you can take the power of GIS and geographic data and then kind of combine it into these interactive storytelling tools through things like elements, which we'll look into a little bit. So Felt is entirely on the web, and just, you know, as the slide says, it's powerful, fast, and also very intuitive. Felt is designed by designers, and so and it's very familiar if you're used to using any tools on the web or just any modern tool. Felt will feel very familiar to you. Felt is also really the first mapping platform that you can collaborate. So that's really kind of unique about Felt, as well as much of us collaborate on Google Docs or Google Sheets or Figma and tools like that. That is the same thing that you can do in Felt. So that's also a really powerful part of the tool. Okay, so today I have, you know, in the true spirit of a workshop, I wanted to kind of pretend that we were asked by the city of Gijón to make a walking tour map that is kind of stuck in a website in PDFs and bring that to life interactively and see how we could do this in Felt. I won't get through all of the parts of Felt, but I just to give you a introduction to some of the things that you can do. Before we do that, I wanted to just like take a look at some maps that were made in Felt. So I'm gonna go through some that I've made, but also some that our users have made. And so I always kind of like to start with this very first map that when I started at Felt, you couldn't do much with the tool, but you could do some stuff. And this was actually one of the very first maps that I spent a lot of time making in Felt. So for me, what was really cool is being able to take all of these different emojis and kind of look at where all of the different animals are around the world. And so, you know, in some ways this is definitely a map, but it's just a different kind of map that is unexpectedly delightful just to kind of look at. You know, there's some other things I've incorporated in here where you can zoom into one of these emojis with a star and learn something about a particular animal. Another kind of upgraded version of this that I worked on before you could add any geographic data or anything like that was kind of taking that same idea, but using all of the kind of drawing tools that we have and making this quote unquote map of San Diego Zoo. But really what this is showing is San Diego Zoo, they do a lot of endangered species and taking care and, you know, so it's just an interesting zoo with different animals there. And what I really wanted to do is just kind of bring the animals there to life through the emojis, through doing different drawings. And also for the first time that I was able to make a map, where I could embed, I mean, who doesn't like to look at baby orangutans? They're so cute. And so this is, again, a map, but a different way of telling a story about a place. This is a map that a friend of mine made who is an artist, Molly O'Halloran. And this, again, was very early on in Felt days, but she did a lot of illustrations outside of Felt and then brought them in. So, you know, you can drag and drop things very easily. But then she went even further and used some of our drawing tools, particularly the highlighter, to make to tell this like walking story about in San Antonio for Mission San Antonio. From this bird to these tiles to everything. So really like this is all pretty much hand done, but another way that a map has been, a felt map to tell a story. One of my favorite ones that a user made is this map, which is the migration of gray whales and kind of the journey that they take. So through their migration. And you can see, like, if you zoom in, like this is another really powerful thing just about being on the web is being able to zoom in and introduce more information. And so here is really like the story of how far these whales travel and the different places that you can see them. And just like these little stories kind of embedded in here on the map. Okay, I'm gonna go a little faster because I have more, but I will get through these. Look, this is from one of our users who works at Harvard, Belle Lipton, and she made this map so to tell like a historic kind of story about Harvard campus. So you can see here she has a historic map from the 1930s. And if you click on one of these points, what you can see is how it used to look versus how it looks today. This is another very, very detailed map that one of our users put a lot of effort into, basically outlining the entire Tour de France route and all of the elevation gains and changes as you go along the route. And they've combined elevation data, different historic maps, and if you really zoom in, you'll see that there's just all kinds of YouTube videos and images and everything embedded in here. Yeah, so I will just go through these a little bit more quickly, but really the point is that I think just going back to, you know, this very strong GIS use case of mapping tools these days, but also these really kind of creative storytelling ways to tell maps of stories that really you can't do with many mapping tools out there. And some, you know, Also, obviously, there's a lot of, I'm a cartographer, so you can definitely make beautiful cartographic maps. Here are just some examples of different ways that I tell stories through maps using felt. I'll just go through them kind of quickly. So what we're going to see today is very much just getting familiar with the different kinds of things that you can do with felt. But there's just a whole bunch of variety of maps that can be made. And I did want to point out that we have a gallery and many of these maps are in there. So if you're interested, I have some resources at the end, but if you're interested, you can look through this gallery, click on a map. And if you have a felt account, you can copy the map into your account. Okay, so let's move on to our project, which is making our walking map. So on this website, tourism website, there's a section, and I'm sure many of you know, if you're local to the area, know this, but there's this website, and there's different things that as a tourist that are offered on this website that you can do. And I was looking at this walking routes and just to kind of experience the culture of the city through a walking tour. So I was looking at Cima Villa and just kind of looking through here. And what I noticed is that this is very much a story about this northern part of the city, but it's also very much stuck in a web page. And as you're reading, they kind of tell you as you walk up this street, as you walk up that street. But imagine being somebody who is a tourist trying to navigate this web page as you're walking around. So, and then there's also a lot of different maps, walking route maps on the website as well. But again, these are kind of stuck in these PDFs. You can't really interact with it. You can't do anything with it. You can't zoom in, you can't zoom out. And it's just very static. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna kind of be looking at is if we go through this very quick, there's a few museums in here. There's a plaza or two. There's this very well-known sculpture on the ocean. So these are all things that we want to add to a map. And a lot of times, data comes in different ways, but a lot of times like going out and finding GIS data isn't very, very easy. So I'm going to kind of show you a couple of different ways that you can use felt to collect this kind of information. Okay, so first I'm just going to go here to felt. So this is felt, and this is basically your kind of maps dashboard. Here you can see kind of your recent maps, your drafts. You can organize different projects, which I highly recommend doing. So if you are working on several different projects, it's a great way to have some folders to organize. You can also invite, you can also invite people to your project. So if, for example, Pablo and I are working on a project together, I can invite him as a collaborator here, and this could be our working space. So this is a nice kind of feature in felt. If you saw my actual account, I have about 50 projects here. I use it quite a bit. Okay, so to start a new map, well, I'm just going to click here on a new map. And here what we get is usually what it does is it takes you to where you're accessing felt from, but that's not where I was. And so here we have felt. So you open it up. It's just a map. You see a set of tools up here. We're really going to kind of be looking a lot at these element tools, and these are tools that you can use to add the media and images and all of that kind of stuff onto the map. You will also look at our layer library, so a set of curated layers that we have available to easily use in your maps. And we'll also look at uploading some data and kind of changing like the different backgrounds and base maps that are available here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is just go to let's get to our area of interest. And so, as I mentioned, the first thing that we need is some points of interest on here. And so what I've done is I have this Google Sheet, and this is basically, I found a source online with all of the museums. I think a couple are missing, but these are all of the museums in Gijón, and I have a field with a description, the address, I have a image file, and just other information about the museum, and then latitude and longitude of the location of each one of these. So felt does, even if I just had the address and I had the address with the city and the country, then we can do geocoding. But just for simplicity, I added the latitude longitude field so we could see how easy this kind of works. A lot of times, if you're working with anybody, spreadsheets are very common to be managing data, and it's just nice that you can connect this easily to Felt. So the only thing you have to do is make sure that your share settings on your Google Sheet are anyone with link, and just copy that link. And then I'm going to go back to my map here. And another nice thing is if you're, I'm just going to do Command V. So Control C, Command V, all of those keyboard shortcuts that you're very familiar with work in Felt. And so what's happening right now is Felt is looking at that latitude, longitude column and is going to draw these points on the map. So just like that, now we have these museums here. And I'm just gonna click on that. So this is now a data layer. I'm gonna click on that and make these a little bit larger just so we can see them better. So in this sheet, we have attributes. These are all attributes of those individual points. So now if I click on one of these, I can see that all of that information has come through. Okay, so I want to just give these a label. So I'm going to add the label here, and it takes that field that we had for name. There's also an image field here. And so if I go, what these are pop-ups. And so if I go down here to the pop-up, I can format it. So I want the title to be the name. So it says the name of the museum. And then here in the image URL, I'm going to search this image field. And then what that does is it automatically brings in the image from my spreadsheet that is attached to each museum. I can also do other things like rename all of these fields. I can remove ones that I don't want, so more for final presentation. You can do that kind of stuff, and we don't, so they look a little bit cleaner. Okay, so that's one way to add data. It could also be that I had a geographic file, like a shape file or a GeoJSON or any geographic format I could have also added. But I think this spreadsheet is really a common case. And the other nice thing is if I, for example, say I wanted to actually change a description or change the image or anything. Now that this spreadsheet is connected to my map, if any changes that I make, I can go to this 3-dot menu and just oops, sorry, I can go to this data tab and just choose the option to refresh. And what that will do is go back out to the spreadsheet and refresh the data on the map. So it's really nice in that way. Okay, so I only had data for the museums, but there's definitely other places on the tour. So I'm just gonna find the plaza, and I see that here it's actually named this, so I'm just going to use the actual name. I'm going to copy that and go to the search up here and paste that in. Okay, and so now I have that, and I want to do that for the remaining few sites that we want. And there is one or two more, but I will grab this one here. Okay, I think there's a couple more, but this is good. So these we brought in as data, and now as I've searched, what these have become are elements. So when I click on element, I can see that I get different kind of options here. So I want to, similar to how we have the description and photo in the data, you don't always need to have data. You can also just place pins on the map and give them the information that they need. So for example, here, if I go back to this site, and if I get the description here, I can just paste it in here. And if I have an image, which I do, I can add it in there. And that also becomes information that's now there. With all of these, you can also kind of do this zoom in, and anything that you have about it will show up. We want to make this more of a landmark, so I can change the symbol. We have a set of built-in symbols, but also emojis. So I'm just going to choose this landmark type symbol, and there we go. And I'll do the kind of same here, except I'll just add the image, except this one is very, let me do my, I didn't know, I couldn't find the right emoji for a sculpture, but this one, I could also add an image in a different way. So since this is a very well-known landmark, what it might be is that I want to, sorry, I want to find my folder. Okay, well, it doesn't matter, because maybe what I want to do with that one is actually just take this screenshot of this photo or copy it or anything, and I want to drag and drop that onto my map. So that is actually more kind of visible. So you can drag and drop anything here. You'll see that I'm just grabbing and resizing images as I go. And then here, we're just going to do one more. I will just add this emoji, but I won't add the description. So I hope I'm not going too fast. And if we were all in person, I would ask at this moment if there are any questions, but hope this is all kind of going along okay. The other thing that we want to do, because this is a walking tour, is do the recommended route. So, through here, they say that you walk up this street, you walk down this street. And so I'm going to take another tool here, which is the route tool. And I have different routing options, cycling, biking, driving, walking. We're walking. And the walking tour, from what I read, starts here at the museum here, and then so what you can see is happening as I'm doing this is underneath it's following the road network and snapping to the road network. If I was using the driving mode, I wouldn't be able to get to all of the different, it would actually snap me to different routes. So here we're gonna go, and then I think it was, you go up here, here, and then you come back, oops. Come back around, okay, I'm just gonna click it there, and then you come back down around and go here. And then I think it says you should probably go to here. So just like that, we kind of put the walking tour in. I wanna just give it a little bit of a different style. So I'm gonna do a dashed line and just break that down and change the color. Maybe we can make this a little bit thicker. I also want to put the distance on there. And there we go. So now we know this about a 1.25 kilometer walk, and here are the different places that you can go. Okay, so as we saw, there's this kind of aesthetic that the city maps have. So I think it's always good to work off inspiration. And since we want the city to accept our map, we want to kind of make it look very similar to what they have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm using this light gray base map, but what we can see is that the park is really highlighted, the ocean, and there's more definition to these buildings. Now, I don't have all of that data, but if I'm inside a felt, I can go to the layer library that I briefly showed and see what kind of information is there for me to use. So I'm going to find the parks. So these are actually global parks from OpenStreetMap. I want to find buildings, StreetMap global building data set, and I want to find the ocean. So we can start working with that. Okay, so just like that, I kind of have like, now if I zoomed out a bunch, you can see that these layers actually cover anywhere you go. So I have parks, buildings, and ocean wherever I want around the world. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little bit of cheating here, but again, we want to just follow the city's kind of guidelines. So all of these came in as data layers. So I'm going to click on this layer here and go to style. And if you're in Chrome, what you can do is you can just grab this color picker tool here, and I can just kind of grab the colors from this image that I have, which is nice. So there's the park. I want to do the same thing for the oceans. And of course, you know, it's not always perfect. You have to just kind of go around to find a good representative color, but there we go. And so now it's starting to look a little bit more like this map. I think the buildings, we'll leave them as is, just in the interest of time. Okay, the other kind of thing that I want to do is I'm just going to remove that, but we want to put some of this information on here. So, you know, along this walking tour, there's these interesting facts that you're given. So I'm gonna take one of those interesting facts about how women worked at this factory, and I'm gonna put it in the map here. So I can use this note element here, and I'm just gonna paste that text in there. Maybe I'd want to make it a little bit shorter, so it's not taking up so much room, but I can then take something like this line tool and just, you know, kind of connect it there. And that becomes kind of a story now that I could add into my map about this place. Alternatively, it could definitely be a description here, but if you just want to highlight some things. I also want to make sure that the actual website of these different walking tours is there. So I'm gonna just take this URL and copy it, and then do this paste again. And so now what this will do is bring that website in, and I can just more walking tours. So you can kind of take text and make it larger and smaller and rotate it and do all this kind of stuff. You can multi-select and you can do all kinds of things. So it's really you can do a lot of manual stuff. I actually want to get, well, it's crooked now, but okay. And then there's also, what else did I have on? Oh yeah, and there's also some, so right now Felt supports YouTube videos. So if we go here, there is a video about Gijón, and I want to just grab this, excuse me, grab this share link here. Oops. I just grab this link here. And just like we've been doing with everything else, I can copy paste that in. I think if I get the right, I don't think I got the right share URL in order to get the video preview. But okay, but trust me that you can also have this preview here for the YouTube video. And like we saw with this map here, you can directly play these videos inside of the map and get the little previews. Okay, so I feel like I am maybe haven't done something on this map that I wanted to do, but I don't know. I think we can call that good. Now I want to share this map and with my collaborators. So I'm gonna share it with my coworker and I'm gonna make her an editor. And what will happen is she will get an email saying that Mamata has shared this map with you and she wants you to collaborate with her on it. And I can have different settings where she could just view it, she could view and comment, or she could view, comment, and edit. So I'm gonna give her all this access. And then what I'm gonna do is there's certain things that I want her to look at. And there's this really great feature in Felt where you can comment on the map for collaboration. So I can say, Rachel, do you think we should add some restaurants and bars? And then I can send that to her. And now that she's in the map, she'll get an email notification and also see that I have sent her a comment. And so the commenting is very powerful because you can work on a map together either in real time. So if Rachel was here, you would see her cursor kind of moving around this map and doing things as I was. But you can also collaborate through commenting, especially on distributed projects where people are working at different times. If once a comment is resolved, you can always oops, sorry. You can go over here and you can say that this comment is resolved and it kind of resolves the thread. The other thing is just to kind of clean this map up before we share it is I want to get all of these different points of interest. So I'm gonna, the ones that we did with the pins. So I'm just gonna hold shift and multi-select all three of these. And I want to put them in a group. So here, if I click group selection, and these are going to be our sites. And I can give those a little, I don't know, maybe we could use a camera or something. And now all of these, if I turn this on and off, all of these are kind of grouped together. I can do the same with the walking tours, with all of these kinds of things. You can, grouping is very kind of a concept in felt too. So if I go over here to the list view and now I look at that group, I can see that all three of our sites are in there. You can also hold shift and drag everything. So if I want Rachel to look at this map, but I don't want things to move, I can just go here and I've selected everything and I can lock it in place. So now none of these, elements that we've added can be moved on the map, which is also important when you're collaborating. We added some contextual information to this map, the ocean, the park, that kind of stuff that we don't really want on our final map. So I can go here to these different layers and hide them from the legends. So I just hit the minus sign there to get these off of here for a cleaner map. And then I just named these the museums. Okay, so if we had more time, this map would be way more beautiful and we would have done more stuff, but we want to now share this with the city. So we don't want to send them this version of them. We want to send a version that looks like branded to their to the city of Gijón's website. So what you can do is you can embed, you can create an embed, a branded embed. So if you go to the felt menu, file, embed, you'll see that we get some options here, and you can turn different things on and off, like if we didn't want a legend or if you didn't want different viewer controls. But I'm going to go over here, and that's for an embed, but I'm going to go over here to the web page and say I want a top bar here. So now this is added, this top bar, and then I want to add my logo from the city. And now if I copy this link and take it over here to a website, you'll see that this now looks something much more that we could share with the city, except I need to give the map a title. So walking tour, and that should now be up there, and I should give my map a title too. But I think what I will do really quick is go back to here and just grab the description. So I could add a map description too. If I go up here to the settings, it allows me to add this description. I could add a URL. I can add a lot of things there. And now if we read, and I should give this a tour. Okay, I think we got it now. So now if I refresh this embed, can see that we have all of the information we put together. So that was a really fast kind of tour of felt, and I thank you for going through. And like I said, that was a lot of information, but there are a lot of resources here to note down, and I can also share this in the chat. But we have a YouTube channel with a lot of great videos of how to. We have blog We have a blog. We have a Slack community, which is a great place to come ask questions, show maps that you're working on. And also we have a Reddit community, which is the same. So, and here's my email address. If you get into Felt and start using it and you have questions or want to see anything in more detail, please feel free to get in touch.
So thank you very much, Mamata. It was great. It was really hands-on, and also you showcase also the place where we are right now, and like this institution. So yeah, it was lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we have the idea of this workshop was really to be inspirational and more like showcasing, non-demos. But I think we have just 5 to 10 minutes. So if someone has a specific question, both for Mamata or for Vladan, because Faye in China, she had to leave. It's time right now, or if not, we wrap up. Well, yeah. So we are gonna have a Felt nonprofit account that I think there are some people that I know in the you know, like watching this, and I think for them I'm sure it was really helpful. The like some GIS practitioners, like also they can add like data sets, like for example about housing, whatever. So I think it's gonna be a really good combination, like to join together, let's say geographers plus visual artists, no? So
Yeah.
I think we're gonna in LABoral we're gonna use this tool for the next 1 or 2 years. And also, if someone here wants to use like our account as a sandbox, feel free also to write to me and my LABoral account. So yeah, so I think it was
And everything that we looked at today is part of the nonprofit account. So everything we did, you will, there's some features that are like enterprise, but there's a lot of power on this nonprofit team plan. So yeah. I can't
Cool.
wait to see the maps that come out.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you to Mamata, to Vladan, to Faye. I think it was as I say like superstars cartographer meeting, and I think hopefully we will take advantage, and also like thanks to the EMAP consortium and the EMAP network to make it possible.